Are you looking for a fun way to win up to 25 times your money this football and basketball season? Test your skills on Prize Picks, the most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Just select two or more players, pick more or less on their projections for a wide variety of stats, and place your entry. It's as easy as that. If you have the skills, you can turn $10 into $250 with just a few taps. Easy gameplay, quick withdrawals, and injury insurance on your picks are what makes Prize Picks the #1 daily fantasy sports app. Ready to test your skills? Join the PrizePicks community of more than 7 million players who have already signed up. Right now, PrizePicks will match your first deposit up to $100. Just visit prizepicks.com/bluewire and use code BLUEWIRE. That's code BLUEWIRE at prizepicks.com/bluewire for a first deposit match of up to $100. PrizePicks, daily fantasy sports made easy.
Hello, friends. Welcome to Pod Mavericks Group Therapy. My name is Kirk Henderson. I'm editor-in-chief over at MavsMoneyball.com. I apologize for the slightly delayed start. I wanted to do this on a Friday afternoon, and I thought I might be able to get away with not having to do work, but alas, that is not how the world goes. Needed to finish up a conversation with my boss, and here we are. It's been a couple of days since we hung out. I intended to do this a little earlier last night, but it's kind of ran out of gas. I'm still catching up on some rest from the regular season, and I wanted to do one of these during the daytime in the hopes that we could get some guests in here that were, on the other side of the world. Maybe some Slovenian guests like my man Clemen. Thanks for hanging out with us here. There's not a ton to talk about, so I would really like for you guys to try to come help me carry the show for a little bit. I want to talk a little bit about the playoffs, like what we've seen, what we like, what we think the Mavericks might be able to take away from it. Obviously, there's some news on the coaching front. And then we have some Mavs Moneyball articles that I've liked and kind of thoughts that we've seen out in Mavs fandom. And we can, talk about what we think is realistic and talk about what we think isn't. And I'd really, really like to hear what you guys are thinking. So I already got one guy in the waiting room. So we're going to let Andreas come up first and give us his thoughts on just about anything Mavs related, or really honestly otherwise. I could talk about whatever. I've been watching a lot of television and not as much basketball as I should have. How are we?
Excellent. Now that I'm on with you particularly, how are you doing?
I'm okay. It's Friday here. The sun is shining outside, and I'm having a nice day. How about you?
Well, since I realized our big problem for the Dallas Mavericks will be solved next season.
Okay.
I am excellent. Thank you very much.
It is solved. Tell me, how is it? What is the big problem, and how is it solved? This is
we have certain Rudy Gobert kicking people. We have certain Joel Embiid playing around. We have Draymond Green doing his thing. We have Miles Bridges still being out and about, and I think he would play wonderfully with Jason Kidd. And after his stories and so on and so forth, and I think I don't know, since Dallas seems to be home for troubled colleagues out there, troubled guys, I am confident that it will be entertaining, to say the least, going into next season, since we don't sign guys such as, I don't know, Lou Dort was on the market, if I'm not mistaken. I'm certain Vucevic won't be in a Dallas uniform. I think we said goodbye to the idea of Goran Dragic. Mm-hmm. I think we all can go on and on. So it will be entertaining, that's for sure. So that's why I'm happy.
I gotta admit, because the Rudy Gobert stuff, he's fans who want him, like, I understand why fans want him for his play.
Yeah.
But it really is something that his teammate, like, it even doesn't seem like his teammates like him.
Yeah.
Not a matter of that, but it's just after 82 games, he seems like that colleague you kind of want to hit with a frying pan because he will not. He's like, it's like somebody who brings who microwaves fish in the office or some kind of war crime like that. Like, it's truly remarkable how much Rudy seems to bother his teammates. I can't. The one that seems likely to me, and I don't know why it seems likely, it's just it feels like the Draymond Green thing. That feels real, and I don't know why. It just feels like something that Dallas would do. What do you think?
Yeah. I think the payroll of the Golden State Warriors don't allow them to go.
Like they could buy a Caribbean island for how much their payroll is. It's beyond absurd. So
it's beyond absurd, and has been for years now. They're as far as I'm concerned, or as far as I know, they must pay luxury tax. It must be absolutely absurd already, because I think it gets worse and worse every year if you have same sort of luxury tax situation going on.
That's right.
So, yeah, I mean, success proves them right to a degree. Let's see how far it will carry them this season. But I'm certain, expert Andy here, that they are destined for a certain breakup, and therefore I am totally with you that the Draymond thing seems to be real. And again, I mean, Rudy Gobert as well, and there we have it, the entertaining Dallas Mavericks backcourt. Well, here we go.
Do you have anybody that you prefer that you're seeing in kind of what I guess I don't really like this term, but it's what we call distressed assets, like players who might be gettable for less than their value?
That's a good question, because I think we all can agree this is all Dallas can get with what they can offer, one way or another. And I mean, just before you opened up the show, I had this crazy idea, let me call it wine-infused idea here.
Ooh.
Of us just getting Ben Simmons. Yes, there I said it. If we also get something like Mikal Bridges, I think we all can agree he's like the top 5 sort of small forward on the market.
Talent-wise, absolutely.
Yeah. Excuse me? Sorry.
Talent-wise, I don't think there's a question, because he's the kind of athlete that very few teams have, and the Mavericks. We all get really excited that Josh Green can jump, but like Miles Bridges is a next tier athlete. So
I'm with you there. So a bundle those two guys, and I mean, Ben Simmons has health problems as far as I'm concerned, and the medical stuff I think has always been without the doubt top notch. So I think that might be an interesting pairing, so to speak. And I don't know, you throw in a Davis Bertans, a Tim Hardaway, who Dallas seemed to have tried to get rid of since years. Best vibe guy from my personnel, from where I'm standing, and I don't think Dallas has too many guys of those left, particularly with Dwight Powell's future a little bit in uncertainty now after all those years, getting older and so on and so forth. We all know Jalen Brunson was a big contribution. About Jalen Brunson, maybe quickly, I was on a plane, and the only thing I had available was an older podcast. And I think our hopes were back then that the departure of Jalen Brunson is not such a big thing for us.
Oh God!
And excuse me.
Just some wonderfully bad. We're all trying to talk ourselves into the fact that it'll be fine.
Yeah,
it was not fine.
It wasn't fine. So anyway, where I'm trying to go with this is that to answer your question, really, that might be a situation, might be going forward. And as much as I would like an idea in this territory, I certainly have no idea whatsoever what we do about the point guard situation, about the backup point. I have no clue. I mean, Gohan got a year older, and he didn't look too springy to me whatsoever. Vibes, yeah. Although I want to question that to a degree as well after really the party night in the European or World Championships. I start to mix things up here, where he was part of as well, and that doesn't particularly speak as a mature thing to me either. Having had really his last real opportunity to win some precious metal, if you wish. Yeah, who's left? Who would be a really solid, strong vibe backup point guard? I mean, for all what he had left, at least Kemba had a good vibe, which he could bring to the locker room back then. And so my hopes were very high on him. So, do you have any guess on who a backup point guard could be potentially?
I really, really don't, because it feels like when it comes to anything free agency related, I saw somebody in the chat say, like, we're not getting anyone. Why are we even having this discussion? and I kind of feel that way. Like, talking about this team right now, it feels so hopeless is not right, but we're getting there. We're getting closer to hopeless. And I think that I sort of wish that the free agency came before the NBA draft.
Yeah, I never got that.
It's tradition. I wish they did free agency first so that you could then plug, if you needed to draft, if you're using the draft to base on need, then you could go that way. Instead, it's the other way around. So the draft lottery is May 16th, which is just under 3.5 weeks or so. And if we get to that point, and if the Mavericks keep their pick, at that point, that opens up a lot of things, a lot of potential to talk about. Over at Mavs Moneyball, we're not doing a ton with it yet because I start to feel like Doctor Strange trying to predict the future. And it's not that it's not fun, but it creates unrealistic expectations. And I'm really bad about that, because that sort of stuff makes me mad when I see, frankly, some of my friends do it, where it's like, oh, we can do this. We can go get DeAndre Ayton in the offseason. It's like, no, we can't. Why are we doing that? So it's like, at least with these questions about distressed assets, where you're talking about Rudy and you're talking about a guy like Draymond who wants a bigger contract than he's probably going to get, I at least find that interesting, because there's some stuff that could happen, maybe not for the Mavericks necessarily, but I do think they're moving in that direction. I don't know. This is a tough one for me, because it's like everyone has come to where I have been on the team's outlook. It took, the second half of the season, everybody kind of very much became very pessimistic, even after the Kyrie trade. So, and now it feels like everybody's as grumpy as I am. And then, but I'm kind of like, oh, this. So, maybe the draft will reinvigorate me. I think it will, to a degree, because even if I fully kind of expect the Mavericks to trade the pick on draft night for someone, which drives me crazy, that at least opens up some possibilities as what they could do. I still think they would probably trade for a wing and then big man before point guard, to kind of circle back to your question, because there are point guards to be signed. They just need to actually do it. And that's where they failed this last offseason, is they're like, oh, well, we have point guards. No, you didn't. McKinley Wright tried his hardest, but he's 5'11". Like, it's not a real thing.
I'm totally with you there. And I mean, it goes back to what you said about Harrison Barnes, that we created some opportunities there. And I think in our opinion, which weren't really there, but at least they created an idea which completely blew up in their face. And it still hurts me. I mean, Harrison seems to be a wonderful guy, really, and I wish him all the best. I think we all do. But to see him now really excelling on a Kings team, and us being pretty much nowhere, hurt the stings a little bit. And that, I must say, hurts me the most. It's that this process is taking so slow. And I don't know if it's you, me, and I think at least an awful lot of those who are listening right now, or maybe later, it has been so obvious or can I go that far? I'm not entirely sure. And I wonder, the ones in charge, why don't they see it? I don't really get it. It hurts me to see. Goes back to really Tyson Chandler days, where we had an opportunity to re-sign them. I still don't understand why we didn't do that when he went to New York, I think, and so on and so forth. So that's bad.
I think it comes down to, and I'm assuming, but I feel pretty strongly about this assumption. I think Mark Cuban values top of the market superstars, Luka, maybe Kyrie, I'm not even sure there, Giannis, Jokic.
Yeah.
And then he values absolute bargain basement deals. And that's it, because the Mavericks have not been interested really, or they've been able to improve around the margins in just some time. And you kind of see it throughout the way they've built the team, in that, Josh Bowe wrote about this week, where he talked about how, Dorian Finney-Smith and Spencer Dinwiddie are great examples. Spencer's three-point shooting fell off by 10% since he's left the team. Dorian close to 12%. Now, it's not a ton of sample, but Luka was getting them better shots. Like that's just all. So it kind of comes back to this notion of, even if you're not signing the best players possible, what if they just improved somewhere a little bit at some position? I mean, the Mavericks, they tanked to get this 10 position, but what if they had one more player that was in the lineup that was decent? Would they have won 5 more games? It feels crazy to talk about now, but that's kind of it, at least for me.
But in a way, I'm totally with you there, and we might have been able to win 5 more games. But to a degree, I'm happy that we are where they are, because it hurts now, and better now than later, because the loss would be even bigger. And not talking only Kyrie, but obviously Luka. And now that we have an opportunity to really sign that second star, who to a degree is flawed when it comes to defense, I agree. But he has obvious strengths which can't be denied, and I think he has the potential to be a very good vibes guy, which obviously is super important as well, if he puts his head and heart to it, his mind and heart. So there's an opportunity maybe. And also, I'm really strong on Nick Vucevic. I think Luka and him, they had a lovely conversation after that Bulls game, and I know he wouldn't maybe solve all problems for Dallas at 5, but at least when it comes, I don't know, to rebounding and having a third guy who can really put the ball in the hoop, that might be a guy. And I mean, he's one of the, I think, marquee centers on the market as a free agent this off season. That might be an opportunity. I think Chicago would like to re-sign them, and I think other teams would be interested in him. But I would really like to see him in a Dallas uniform. That would be an opportunity, and I think not too far-fetched when it comes to looking at the strengths and weaknesses he brings and the team needs.
Wow.
So there it goes.
Well, thank you for getting us started.
Sorry, please.
No, go ahead.
And then a Tyler Hendricks at the 4. I think he's 6'9", something like that. And Tankathon always puts him in a Dallas uniform in draft night. And there you have a decent opportunity to not only get you those 5 wins, but maybe a little bit more and a positive outlook for the future. And that might be all we need.
I personally want them to take someone with the pick, because I like draft picks. I like unrealized potential better than a guy that I'm aware of. It's just kind of how I'm wired. But finding a guy that they play at 10, I think is hard. Of course, there's a lot of learning for them to do. I doubt the Mavericks are probably playing a lot of catch up right now, because they didn't anticipate to be in this position. So it's, Brian Damaris wrote in a D Magazine column during the week that he thinks the Mavericks trade the pick, which it makes me so irritated, but I completely get why, because your goal is to win next season. Just win next season. So,
you know what? Isn't Dennis Smith Jr. available?
Yeah. I wonder if he'd be interested in coming back. Really? I mean, he played his way back into the league. That's That would make everybody, everybody's happy. Mavs takesman Dalton Trigg, he would be thrilled with the Dennis Smith Jr. signing. That's an interesting idea. I like it.
Yeah, and particularly since, please correct me if I'm wrong, but I think defense is more of a strong suit than maybe other
aspects.
aspects.
A lot better. He got a lot better because his physical stature. He's 6'1" with a 6'1" wingspan. He turned himself into a defender, which is really impressive.
Yeah, and wouldn't that be a nice sight for sore eyes? One guy I forgot to mention here is Matisse Feibel. I don't know. I always was play ball a little bit myself, and I was always more of a defensive guy as well. I take pride in that. I don't know. I would really like to see him a Jaden Hardy, Matisse Feibel combination, really being part of a second unit, hustling their way through and giving Luka and Kyrie some rest. I don't know. A lot of pipe dreams here.
I like it. It's the time of the year for it. Well, Andreas, thank you so much for getting us started.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
Have a good day.
We're driven by the search for better. But when it comes to hiring, the best way to search for a candidate isn't to search at all. Don't search, match with Indeed. If you need to hire, you need Indeed. Indeed is your matching and hiring platform with over 350 million global monthly visitors, according to Indeed data, and a matching engine that helps you find quality candidates fast. Ditch the busy work. Use Indeed for scheduling, screening, and messaging so you can connect with candidates faster. And Indeed doesn't just help you hire faster. 93% of employers agree Indeed delivers the highest quality matches compared to other job sites, according to a recent Indeed survey. One of the things I love about Indeed is it makes hiring all in one place so easy and streamlined so I can spend more time on the rest of my business. Leveraging over 140 million qualifications and preferences every day, Indeed's matching engine is constantly learning from your preferences. So the more you use Indeed, the better it gets. Join more than 3.5 million businesses worldwide that use Indeed to hire great talent fast. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/Blue Wire. Just go to Indeed.com/Blue Wire right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/Blue Wire. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? You need Indeed.
All right, coming up next then is my man Krishna, who's been waiting patiently, and then we'll get to Leo. Krishna, what's up, man? Looking like a real podcaster there. Look at that.
Yeah, I've
set up.
Well, okay, I have this mic only because my internal microphone completely bust on me. And so I said, well, I can either go and get this fixed or I'll just go and buy a microphone. So
I get it. Well, it looks cool.
Yeah.
Makes it look like a I love this. This is great. So what are you thinking today?
I don't know. It's interesting. Obviously, the Nick Nurse news. I don't think I'm that shocked. I think Toronto, I remember when they fired Casey and, it was pretty big news, but I also felt like Masai is that kind of guy where he's kind of like the Patriots in that sense, and Belichick, where it's like, we're going to get rid of it before it becomes a bigger problem.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's what it was. And I don't think it's that Nick Nurse is a bad coach, but some of Nick Nurse's problems had just been that their rotation was pretty bad. Like they had really only gotten to like 5 or fewer guys. And so I think he'd be a good coach still in Dallas, but I don't know. Like my question is still with Kyrie. Like I think the one thing I give Kid a bit of credit for is I think he's handled the Kyrie situation okay and fine. And, I think a lot of that goes to Kyrie himself. He's been professional during this time. But I also just wonder, if Kyrie resigns and then you get a new coach, already like you're going to probably have some difficulty just because, you have Kyrie on a longer contract and, you don't necessarily know what his motivations will be. But if you don't have Kid there also, what is that going to do? And so as much as I'm also on that kind of train where I don't really want to see Kid again, I also just don't think it's going to happen. Like, I just don't think Kid is going to get fired. So I'm not super blown up about getting Nick Nurse. I think there are still a lot of other coaches out there. Before Kyrie got traded, I was looking at the Golden State Warriors assistant. I forgot his name. He's former Nets coach. but I think he's completely out of the question. I think ultimately, like you've said before, I think Harrison and Kidd are kind of a package deal at this point. And I think unless both of them go, one of them is not going. And it's just kind of the way it's been in Dallas for so long. So
Yeah.
that's my feelings on the coaching situation, because I don't think a lot will change. I think the biggest change is going to come from the pick. And I agree with you. I think if it's like a lower pick, I think 10th, it's either we get 10th or only top 4, correct? That's somewhere.
Yes. Yeah, we stay at 10 or we bump down to 11 if someone behind 11 through 14 jumps up to the top 4.
Right, that's what I was thinking. Or we move up to the top 4, I was saying, right? Because we could get the pick 4 through 1, correct? Or am I wrong on that?
Say that again.
We could get the pick also if it's 1 through 4.
Yeah. Yeah,
right, but we can't.
There's a 3% chance they jump to 1.
Right. My feeling was if it's 10, I would still take a player. I think getting someone on a first round contract is always a good thing. And you can get good players in the 10th pick. Or if you want to trade the pick, I think trading back in this draft and getting a future pick would not be the worst thing. I would not hate that in this draft. That's also my feeling if we get a top 4 pick. I think if you get 1, obviously we all know who we're going to pick. That's like, I don't even think that's a question. But if we get 2, I honestly wonder if you would trade that pick, because I think Scoot Henderson is a great player, but he's obviously going to want to play a lot with the ball. And then you either have to have him on the bench or you're playing technically a really small lineup where you would have Luka, Kyrie, and Scoot all starting. And I think Scoot is supremely talented, but I think that's a point where you would just trade back and, maybe you pick like the Thompson twins at like 3, and you pick up like a future first.
Sure. I mean that, like, you hop into the top 4 and the world changes.
Absolutely. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I think it's that point where I would consider trading, but yeah.
Luke Byrne in the chat says he thinks the Mavs would take Miller, which I kind of do too. Not only for the jokes, for like very problematic reasons, but just because he actually solves a lot of problems with how he plays. He's lengthy.
At 10.
No, like if you were in the top 4.
Oh, okay. I mean,
like if you jump like that too, and I think but that it's so difficult to talk about this because you want to talk about it if we were lucky enough to get up that high.
Exactly.
And that's difficult.
Yeah, it's why I'm not super like invested in top 4 right now. I think ultimately I'm just like, get the 10th pick, right? Get the 10th pick and then make your decision then. And I think ultimately if you're going to trade the pick, I would make that decision. Obviously, you make that decision officially on draft night, but I would be wary about going and trading a pick, especially in a draft like this for a quote unquote certified superstar. I think to me the warning would be something like the Clippers. For as much as I think the Clippers would redo that trade, for Paul George, I think those picks are going to be worth a lot for OKC, and they've ultimately got a player in Shea who's better than Paul George. So I think you have to always be wary of what you think is certified in this league, because it's not there's no such thing as a guarantee ever. And so I think keeping the pick and taking that chance, I think personally is where I would go, like you, but it'll be interesting. And ultimately we don't have any control.
I mean, I hope it happens for 2 reasons. Number 1, the list of possibilities it opens up. Number 2, the list of possibilities for us to talk about that it opens up, because it could be a whole lot of fun discussing the various optionality where I saw my friend Kenny on Twitter just now said, I don't care about any pick, trade it away for a win now guy. At 10, you're not trading anything. There are no win now guys for a 10th pick. 2, 3, 4, yes. That's it, because again, this is just a different draft. I don't think it's not 2018 level in terms of depth, because that depth is nuts. But there's guys that I would I want Anthony Black at 10, but he's not going to be there. So it's just this is can anybody hear the lawn guys outside my house? I'm worried about that.
A little bit. It's not too bad.
I'll mute myself then when I'm not talking. But yeah, that's kind of it's a lot of fun to think about these things. So
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, there's a lot of great draft analysis. You talked about Rafael Barlow. I think he's really, really great. He was kind of on.
I think he lives in this area.
He does. He lives in the
Okay.
Dallas area.
Yeah, I need
He's
to get
from
him on at some point.
He does a lot of like scouting, even in the Dallas area. He watches the Legends a lot. But he talked about like how he watched Wemby like 3 years ago, and it was like after his marriage, and they went to the game with his wife, and his wife was like, "This guy sucks. What are you talking about?" And then 2 years later, they went and watched Wemby again, and she was like, "Oh, this guy is good." And so I trust his talent ID a lot. He's really good with just kind of the long term like scouting, because it's really easy to look at 1 year and take it all and say like, oh, this is what they are, and that can be true. I think there's a lot of truth to that. Like, I think players can have one really good year and it can grow beyond that, but oftentimes I think looking at what they've done overall in a long term sense is the best thing. Like, so I trust his talent ID on that. So it'll be interesting to see what other people say. And the 10th pick is, I think it's like you've said, it's unfortunate in some ways that free agency is after the draft, but I think it also colors a lot of what this team needs to do. Because if you take the pick, then you kind of have to really build around what you want in that sense. And I think you pointed it out, and I think Tim Cato talked about it a few weeks ago, where he mentioned how Cuban has just had this weird, horrific tendency at this point to not pay players in the what I like to call like 2A category, where it's like $20 million. And the reason you pay players in that bracket is because, and you've talked about it, you don't have players playing above their station, like playing above their talent level. And I think the thing I always give a lot of the guys credit for is they've played above their talent level for so long. But you could only do that for so long. And it's gotten to this point, and the season gotten to this point where it was clearly unsustainable for any of that to happen.
Right.
And I don't put it unnecessarily unfairly on those guys. I think like guys like Dorian and even Reggie and Maxey and Dwight, like they've played way above their station for far too long. And it's not necessarily their faults. Like, I'm not going to sit here and say they've been good. Not really. But it's also like they shouldn't be in a situation where they're playing so many minutes and asked to be playing roles that they're not fit to. Like we were asking Dorian to be Mikal Bridges, and you can see it in Brooklyn right now how far ahead talent-wise Mikal Bridges is of Dorian. And it's just mostly the offensive game, but even defensively, Mikal Bridges is younger. He's a little bit more spry. You're just not going to get that kind of comparison. And so I think, yes, you want to get, the money ball, right? The talent ID. You want to get those lower costs, but you want to do that at the end of your bench, where instead of Frank Ntilikina, right, you're getting an Austin Reeves, you're getting a Jose Alvarado. Like, that's what I think the Pelicans have done really well.
They have. Yeah.
Their bottom of the bench talent ID is really good. And that's where you have to go and you get your value propositions, not in the middle of your roster, not in your sixth man, it's not in your starting lineups. Like that's the issue, is you need to, even if it's an overpay, right? Ultimately, like I think Philly is kind of the same way. Like Philly overpaid easily for Tobias Harris, but you would have rather overpaid Tobias Harris than have someone who is severely not a good performer like the Mavericks have had, I think. And whether the Mavs do that or not, it's to be seen. And I think all of this hinges on two things, I think, ultimately this offseason, which is Kyrie re-signing and the terms, and what the Mavs do with the draft pick if they get it. And ultimately, I'm just going to wait and see. I'm just enjoying these playoffs. I'm enjoying the hockey playoffs a lot more. That's been a lot of fun. So, yeah, hopefully everyone has a good rest of their Friday, and take care.
All right, man. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Okay, while we are, I'm bringing up my guy Matthew next, who's been. I asked him to come in from Mavs Moneyball. He wrote about our guy Nick Nurse today. Be sure to like and subscribe. Makes a big difference. Helps me out. We're up to 900 subscribers now, which is pretty wild since I started this like the second to last week of the season. So coming up now, Matthew Phillips. What's up, man?
Not a lot. How are you doing?
I'm doing okay, though. The lawn guys are literally outside my window, so I'm going to let you cook because you have a Nick Nurse take. That's what we wanted to discuss today.
Okay, so my main thought with Nurse is that the Mavs really chose vibes over basketball coaching acumen when they switched from Carlisle to Kidd. And I just think Nurse clearly has some of the same issues Carlisle has as far as driving everyone crazy and all of that. And I mean, obviously his players don't like him, but he has a lot of the same basketball acumen that Carlisle has as far as just being a really, really good X's and O's coach. And I know one of the big complaints is that he kind of ran his stars into the ground. But if you look at it, Kyrie averaged 38.2 minutes a game after he came to the Mavericks. Luka averaged 36.4. So it's not really like that's a big jump. I mean, Siakam averaged 37 minutes a game. Luka averaging 36.4 with the workload that he takes. It's not really like there's a bigger running them into the ground than they already have. The only difference would be that I think they would be deployed more strategically correct, if that makes sense.
It does. I the concerns about rookie stuff, particularly if the Mavericks have a pick. But the thing about the Dallas roster right now is that it's so bad that I don't know, play who's he going to play? They had, I think you said if the Mavericks were to be so bold as to fire Jason Kidd, which be clear, we don't think they're going to do. If they were to be so bold, then it's like they're probably going to have a fairly revamped roster anyway. And then I would sort of worry about those problems as it came up. I mean, I'm sort of the opinion that if you have a player as good as Luka Doncic, you get the best coach for the season in front of you, and you worry about that down the road. You worry about everything else because, if their relationship burns out quickly, but they get to the Western Conference Finals again, do you care? Does Luka care? He wants a coach that he respects very clearly. He wants a scheme. I think there's also a degree where it's like maybe we shouldn't worry about what Luka feels so much and build the best team possible, build the best coach possible, right?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And then also, I mean, to an extent, the offense, as long as Luka and especially if Luka and Kyrie are here, the offense is going to be Luka spamming pick and rolls. I mean, there are ways you can get into that. We've seen certain things with, dribble handoffs and things like that. But so much of the offense is just going to be Luka and Kyrie cooking. And if you get Nurse, what Nurse does so well is really what the Mavs need, which is he can junk up defenses. I mean, we've seen him pull out box and ones, triangles and twos. I mean, he's done all kinds of things that you really wouldn't think are options at the NBA level. And I think that's one of the things that I really like about him is that we saw the Mavs do the same thing and fail at it over and over and over. And Nurse is really, really willing to say, like, okay, X is not working. We're moving on to Y. And then do Y and then be like, hey, we tried Y. Y is not working. We're moving on to Z. And I understand that a lot of times in coaching, there's a tendency to be like, no, we're going to impose our will and we're going to do this. And that trying different things is seen as admitting failure. But sometimes you do need to admit failure. Sometimes it's just being realistic with yourself that, hey, like, for instance, with the Mavs right now, the Mavs aren't good enough defensively. Which actually, while y'all were talking about it before, this made me think about it. If you look at the Mavs, the biggest problem they have right now is that this is obviously a wings league. Who is the most talented player on the Mavericks that you would say is a pure forward?
None.
Like, not a forward guard, not a center forward. They do not have a single good
one.
NBA forward. They don't have one. Because Bullock is more of a guard than a forward. Timmy plays some small forward. He's more of a guard than a forward.
Right. Like you watch Josh Green against a given actual real, like Paul George, and it's just like he's small. Like Dorian was the last one.
Josh Green is 6'4".
Yeah.
Like, I mean, and Green's fine, but that's the problem they have. They don't have forwards. Like everyone who the Mavs, when it's like, hey, what do the Mavs need to do? Get forwards. Like, that's the problem. Like, I actually would really like to see Dennis Smith back and everything, but you can only run out so many guards, and you can call him forward. You can call Tim a forward all you want. He's not. You can and you can call him a 3-and-D guy all you want. He's not, and especially if they go with the whole we're going to get rid of charges, if they move him out, that what little defensive viability he has goes completely out the window if he can't just fall down and call that defense.
Yep.
But all in all, although also with Nurse, it would be pretty interesting because you want to talk about going from polar opposites, going from the Raptors, who are a team all length and athleticism and maybe a little bit lacking in like basketball creation and all that, to the Mavericks, who are all shot creation and no length or athleticism, would be very interesting. And it'd be a cool challenge that I would like to see for him.
Yep. And unfortunately, I don't think it's going to be, I don't know if it's going to matter. I think I wouldn't be surprised if he takes like the Carlisle in 2008 route, which is like take half the year off and like survey and go find the situation that works for him, because it's not like he's going to go coach the Rockets, though that'd be very funny. I mean, the Mavericks have just put us, that's why committing to kids so hard drives me a little bit crazy, because it's like, they're guys out there. They could,
I will say that having a coaching situation with Luka Doncic and his incredibly young superstar and all of this, and that not being just immediately the most attractive coaching job in the NBA is a hilarious example of how bad they've screwed things up, to be perfectly honest. But the other thing I was going to say, and this is really, I think, the last thing I've got, is, we talk about the pick, even if it's the 10th pick, whether it's the 1 through 4 or whatever. If you look at so many players on the Mavs, they have so many limitations from a physical standpoint because they've chosen to build around undrafted players. And we've talked about it at different times and all of that. But, I mean, look at Maxey, undrafted. You look at Dorian, undrafted. You look at, I think Bullock went in the first round a long time ago. I think he went like the 20s or something. But, I mean, so many of the Mavs have been undrafted players. And it's not that they're not good players. That doesn't take away from how good Dorian was. It doesn't take away from how good Maxey was. Because they were both legitimately good NBA players. But what it does mean is that they have physical and talent limitations that players who are taken in the lottery don't have.
Yep.
And so that's one thing. Even if it's the 10th pick, if they take someone, if it's be it Taylor Hendricks or who is basically, I think the hope is Christian Wood, but good. They have more talent. Like those guys have higher upside, and that's why they go earlier. Like, it's fun. It's all fun and games to be Moneyball and try to find market inefficiencies and find talent where other people can't. But it's easier if you're if you're not the run of the litter, if you're one of the main dogs that's suckling before everybody else. It's just easier than trying to find stuff that nobody else has.
That's right. Man, thank you for taking the time to join. I'm glad you're able to figure it out.
Yes, sir.
All right, we'll talk soon. That was Matthew Phillips. He is a contributor to Mavs Moneyball. He wrote about the coaching thing over at Mavs Moneyball if you want to go check that out. And then he has a post that we'll throw up on Monday that explains the math with the lottery odds that I am grateful for because I don't get it. All right, coming up next is my man Leo, and then we have Brian, and then we'll close it out. So, Leo, what do you got for us, my guy?
I was just a simple question as someone who's been watching the NBA for longer than I've been alive.
Oh, wow.
Do you
Thanks.
think sorry about that.
It's fine, man.
But with the current situation with the NBA after just recently suspending Draymond for game 3 and the very wild variations between night to night on what's considered a foul and what's not, do you think we're reaching a tipping point where we're close to like a Donaghy situation where the people watching don't have as much of a attention towards the ref or have like too much attention towards the ref?
There is always this. It's every year there's a variation of this. I will say where the NBA runs into problems now is like as a concept, we shouldn't know who referees are. But we end up because the information's available to us, that's something that's become more prevalent in recent years. The NBA has also seen a bit of an outflux in referees. So a lot of the guys that are getting heat, and this is not necessarily in the playoffs, it's more a regular season thing, are younger guys with less issues. Like there was one guy that like tossed Luka. Can't remember the guy's name, but these sorts of things happen, and the guys get better training and they get more experience and they get better at this. In a given situation, they have to be looking at 3 to 4 things in a play. And frankly, they just miss stuff. And it only gets worse. Like the stuff Embiid was doing last night was clown car stuff. Like I could throw up a video. I might go find it if I can, that just talked about, that just talks about how bad some of this stuff can be. And it shows how bad like Embiid's flopping was. It's just like, I don't know how we expect refs to call this stuff because some of it's on the players. They like the flopping fines go away. The lack of consistency in intent or in judging intent. Draymond Green stomps on a guy's chest and he did it on purpose, but he also had his ankle pulled on. Like there were so many things at play in that situation, makes it complicated. But then you have Joel Embiid last night who doesn't get kicked for kicking someone. Like the dumbass ESPN labeled it and he extended his leg. No, he kicked someone. What are we doing? Like you hope that it doesn't mar an important game is what you get to. At least that was game 3 in a series where teams are overmatched. So what else you got?
Well, because I was headed to this point with the NBA no longer having contracts with major regional networks and possibly becoming their own provider of a stream, wouldn't the fans' feelings towards the league or feeling towards referees very much more affect the revenue the league is getting now? Because instead of just canceling a TV subscription, which is it has a lot more things connected to it, you just cancel your NBA subscription. The click of a button instead of having to call someone.
Yeah, I mean, that dips into such a different level of things where the NBA has some challenges ahead of them. I will say live sports and the rights for live sports, there's so few things. They're only going to continue to go up. And so that's sort of where I land there. But in terms of, fans' ability to, just get so frustrated that they turn away from it, the NBA has to do a better job of messaging next year. Like when they apologized to LeBron James for a missed foul call and then
that was pathetic.
Then they proceeded to give the Lakers more free throws by like an absurd margin for the rest of the regular season. Like you just can't be doing that shit. And it's, some of it, the Lakers did change how they play, yada, yada, but it's just, there's got to be consistency of messaging, an attempt at consistency of like, what the NBA does almost every year is they establish things that this is what we're going to focus on. For a while there, they were calling tons of travels. Do you remember that? And then
at the beginning of the season.
And honestly, like I liked that they called the travels. They were travels. It's fine. It's Marksman.
But they did the same thing last season.
Yes, and that's what I mean. They can't stop and go with the sort of things that they're focusing on. Like if traveling is going to be a focus, make it a focus. They have to do better.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Mr. Kirk.
Sure, Leo. Have a good day. Coming up next is Brian, and then we got the longtime listener Ewan waiting too. Brian, what's up, my guy?
Yo, man, we're finally to the off season. That's what's up. Our off season anyway.
I learned today. So Mavs Moneyball has like a post quota that we have to hit every month. Uh-huh. I learned today that we don't have to hit our full regular season quota, and I was like, oh, I thought that meant through the end of July. So it's like, sometimes it's like when you do post shit like I do, it's definitely making chicken salad out of chicken shit, where it's just like you make up stuff to write about. And now we don't have to do that quite so harshly. So I'm delighted that it's off season, though I do miss the Mavericks being in the playoffs.
Yeah, I miss them playing important games too, but they haven't really done that since
last year.
So yeah, going back to 2022. So I'm not too concerned about that. My thoughts have really been more so with this pick that's coming up. Potentially, we have 80% chance at keeping and having a top 10 pick. So that's been taking up a lot of my headspace lately. And I actually am of the opinion that we should trade the pick, not for a player though. That'd be stupid. We're not going to get a player that's going to be worth the value that we can get, and getting like a cheap young talent of that level of, just from another team who's looking to swipe that lottery pick off of us. I think that we should use it and trade back. Well, we should only use that pick and trade back if Taylor Hendricks isn't there. I think that he would be a perfect fit in Dallas. He'd be a perfect fit next to Luka and Kyrie because defensively he just covers up so much and he's such a good shooter.
Sure.
Right. I think that it would just.
I don't see how he stays at 10. Like when I watch him, where it's like, oh, he's going to be at 10, and I'm like, are you sure? Like everybody's talking about like Anthony Black is going to go higher, and I'm like, I love Blacks. Black went to the same high school as me, and I just desperately want that to happen for purely nonsense reasons. But Hendricks strikes me as, I mean, maybe he's older. I don't know. It's crazy.
He's not that much older. He's going to be like 20 on draft day, so it's not that big of a difference. He's really good, and yeah, lately I've started to see more mock drafts that are going to have him like going as high as 7, maybe even, well, maybe not 6, but yeah, as high as like 7th in the draft, depending on who gets taken before him. So I'm preparing for the eventuality that he may not be there at 10, and that's going to hurt my heart because I just kind of warmed up to the idea of taking him. But if he's not there, and we have the 10th pick and not a top 4 one, then I think that what we should do is call Utah and see if they'll take 10 and give us 16 and 28. That way we could go draft like Derek Lively, and at 28 maybe go get like City.
The Derek Lively stuff is going to turn me into the Joker. Because big men just don't develop at a rate that you want them to. Like Lively is a guy he's very similar to Jaden Hardy in that he was highly nationally ranked and then didn't do much at Duke. Like I would love to argue about him for a month.
You know what? I think they're gonna go after Derek Lively. Quite frankly, if they do trade back, that's gonna be one of the guys they're gonna target. I don't know if they're gonna be smart enough to do that. I think he's just gonna make that pick, which at 10 in this draft you kind of can't fuck it up, because if you don't get Hendricks, if you don't get Anthony Black, the case
you feel good about the range of guys. Yeah. That's where I land too. Like maybe they don't pan out, but I feel good about the options.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, like there are a bunch of guys. This draft goes really deep with like big wings, exactly what you and Matt were just talking about, where we need size on the perimeter. We need big wing defenders, and this draft has a lot of those. Some that are raw, some that are more polished, some that'll be able to play right away, and some that maybe a year or two project, but they're there. We just have to take them. That's why I would prefer to trade back and move back just a little bit so that we can try and get, because quite frankly, Derek Lively is the only big worth of shit, and that's going to be going in the first round of this draft. And after that, it's nothing but wings, the occasional guard, but there's like maybe 1 or 2 league guards worth a damn in the draft. It's like Scoot, Jalen Hood, Shafino, and that's about it. Everybody else is either off guard or a big wing. So I'd want us to take a swing on a bigger wing later in the first round. If we can't get Taylor Hendricks, I think he solved a lot of our problems pretty immediately. And obviously, we want to talk about like what Victor would do for this team if he were here, or like Asari Thompson, somebody like that. So,
Well, thank you, man. You got anything else?
No, dude. I am just watching these refs be bad, watching all these franchises cry. Watching the big bad media darling Sacramento Kings beat up on the small market Golden State Warriors on social media. That's very funny. Everybody shed a tear for Joe Lacob and the Golden State Warriors.
That's right.
So I've been enjoying that, having fun watching the Kings play, and I'm just gonna keep enjoying the playoffs and enjoy having a stress-free playoffs for the first time in I don't know how long.
I like it, my man. Well, we'll talk soon, okay?
Yes, sir, bro. Be easy.
All right. So let's go to – actually, you know what? I have to share LeBron James was mad online today, and he gave a quote. We're going to play it for everybody. See if I can remember how to share my screen. Let's go here. We're going to do Twitter. Share Twitter. All right. So we got this thing here. We got the audio turned up. We're going to see what LeBron James had to say.
I don't want to talk too much sports. Tomorrow's gonna be a great game. I'm not here for bullshit. I'm ready to play, and that's it. I appreciate you.
Okay, he cut off his media availability almost immediately after because LeBron James loves talking. Dylan Brooks might die on national television. I cannot believe that schmuck said that about LeBron. Anyway, coming up next, Ewan Douglas. How we doing, dude?
Hey, what's up, man?
Tell your wife I'm sorry that you're talking to me again.
Nah, I just got off work. I didn't get the notification. I was just scrolling on Twitter and I saw your thing up.
Hey, there we go.
Let me see what's going on. But that LeBron thing you just shared got me distracted a little bit because it's like
I'm sorry. It was just like this Dylan Brooks. I hate the Lakers. It's a religious principle to hate the Lakers. I hate the Lakers. Dylan Brooks, though, is like a bad WWE wrestler. He's like the British Bulldog or some shit. I cannot handle him.
What's crazy is like a few years ago, I was holding LeBron to a certain, pedigree, but it's kind of been dwindling down because all of the crying, the complaining.
He's our age.
Yeah, complaining about the back-to-back against the Clippers. I'm like, come on. Now you want to cry about scheduling now at the end of the season? I'm like, bro, come on. Come on. Let's stop it.
Right.
And the Dylan Brooks thing, I just think it's funny, man. It's just like, he's like, I don't respect you until you give me 40. So I'm like, oh, this guy's funny, man.
It's like, are you asking to give him 40?
Oh, man, that's funny. That's entertaining. But I don't know if anybody mentioned it already because I missed the whole thing, but it's like watching the playoffs this year is just not as Mavs are not there, but it just don't feel like it just don't feel the excitement that we had last year with us playing in Luka.
There's no juice.
There's no juice. There's no juice. There's no when it comes to like the flair. You know how Luka, everybody act tough when they're up, and you know how he plays the game and stuff he does in the game. It just you're not really seeing that this year. Everybody's flopping and they're dropping on the floor and they're crying, and you're just not seeing the amazement of what Luka brings on a nightly basis.
Yep.
So I sit back and I look at it. I'm like, if I'm Luka Doncic and I'm watching the playoffs right now to see how like boring it is in a way, and then all the bad storylines, it's like there's no way he should think like I should miss the playoffs again, and there's no way the Mavericks should have the team in a position where they're missing the playoffs, because I'm pretty sure they're sitting back now like, yo, we could be winning these games, like we could be beating these teams right now.
Well, I mean, that was everybody that was bitching about the Mavericks tanking is like, there's no reason the Mavericks can't do this. And I'm like, yeah, I get it. I just, I want them to lose because I want them to get a draft pick.
But it's like, we know that Luka's like a top 5 player. And like, hopefully he comes back motivated to be like, listen, like, I'm like one of the best players in the world, if not the best player in the world. And, playoff time is when I shine. Like, this is when I put my best foot forward, and a lot of the superstars now, I mean, Booker's having a good playoffs, but like Luka just turns it up a notch when it comes postseason time. He does, and he gives it to your best defender, whoever's guarding him. He just does it. And last year's like Kawhi, he got a knee injury, and now we look back at the 2 years we faced the Clippers. It's like those are the last 2 years he's been healthy, and we faced him those 2 years he was healthy, and it's like we have bad luck. We have like bad luck, and it's just. I don't know how to put it. Like after Game 7, Kawhi was out for the whole Utah series. Was it Utah or Phoenix that he didn't play? Was it whatever the next round was? I think it was Utah or Phoenix, whatever one. But after he beat us, after he went, RoboCop against us in Game 7, the masterclass, the next series he was gone, and that was his last playoff until this year. And it's like,
right.
If we just had somebody, somebody of a dog with us at that time, who knew how far we could have gone the way Luka was playing those 2 playoff series. You know what I'm saying? It's just like, and I just want Luka to just look at this to really see like, there's only a few players that might be better than him in the league. And once you get to the playoffs, when you get the game plan for a team for 4 games and pick them apart, like he should be killing next year, and the Mavs front office should do everything to make sure that we're here. Because once we're in this position, you see what Luka can do. You know, so
I do. I feel you, man.
I'm sorry. One more thing. It's just our ex teammates. Spencer Dinwiddie. We can see he can't make passes. We've been crying for it all year. We've been trying to tell people he can't pass. If you look and see the statistics, he have 10 assists, but are you really watching the game? Like, he cannot pass.
Yeah, it's difficult.
And it sucks seeing Philly Smith like not being in a rotation, not getting any minutes.
Poor guy. Well, he's actually like, I went and looked at his minutes totals. He's played last night. He at least had some rebounds, but like he looks like a borderline not NBA player with how he's played.
It's bad. And the narrative of Luka holding players back, and you see how Spencer looked. We see how Dinwiddie looked. I mean, Brunson been good all year, but it's always easy to get, to beat a team on a night, a back-to-back, they flying across the country. It's easy to beat teams in the regular season like that and play well. But when it comes to the postseason, you got to plan for the same team 4 times. You got to make adjustments. You can see now, like in the next game against with Brunson, I mean, he's getting looks, but they're not as open as they was last year. They're not as wide open, Opponents don't respect Randall and the Knicks players like how they respected our spacing when he was on the Mavericks. So you look at the percentages, his shooting percentages are pretty bad right now. And
really bad.
It's like I don't expect that to change. He may have the points, the total points at the end of the game, but his shooting spread is not going to be as good as with Dallas.
It's pretty brutal.
It might be green on the other side when it comes to the money, but your play wise and your stuff may not be as good as it is playing with Luka, Vapo. So
that's true.
Don't take it for granted.
Well, man, thanks for joining. Appreciate you logging on after work.
Yeah, man, I'm here. Just
All right.
hit the notifications so I could, somehow get them so I could be.
Well, yeah, I think the way you do that is if you are subscribed. Like I try to post these in advance that when I'm doing them, and I'm trying to do it like a day in advance, but life keeps happening. So I think if you do it and you see it on YouTube, if you click the bell on underneath the actual video, because it should notify you. And it's like if your phone notifications are turned on. But I'm trying, I don't use YouTube. This shit is too much for me. I'm still learning it myself. So all right, well, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, man, anytime.
Talk soon. Okay, I want you guys to let me know the timing that works for you. So I'm probably going to do one show with Josh and then one show like this every week for a while. Maybe we'll do more if there's more things to talk about it. Brian says he gets notifications 30 minutes before the stream starts. If you click the bell and choose all notifications, thank you, Krishna. That sort of stuff helps. You will get notified. Please, continue to spread the word to friends. I'm surprised and delighted about how many regulars from Green Room have come over. And yeah, we'll keep doing these at least once a week. I'll probably do one either Thursday evening or Friday afternoon like this for at least the next month. We'll probably do a live show the night of the lottery, so we can either be very, very excited or very, very sad. So everybody enjoy the rest of their weekend. Head over to Mavs Moneyball and read some stuff over there. We've been putting up regular posts. We're going to start our draft coverage, I think, next week. I think we got like our great the first one we got turned in from our new writer DW was on Grady Dick, and I like Grady Dick, but I imagine everyone getting really mad. Anyway, this has been fun. Appreciate you guys taking the time, and we will talk soon. Have a great weekend. Go Mavs.